Hey guys, before we get started, let me take care of a little bit of house cleaning. Some of my videos are shot at different times. I shouldn't say that. They all are shot at different times. Some of them might be 2 or 3 months old, some of them might be 2 or 3 weeks old, and some of them might be right away. It all depends on the work schedule and what I feel relevant. So in other words, if I shoot a video going into a port and then the next week coming out of the port, maybe we might want to see something different. So who knows how that all goes. But for those of you that are interested, especially because it's hurricane season right now, if you want to follow along in real time, you can follow me on Instagram. It's TimBatSea at Instagram, so you can follow me there, and I post things regularly there. So there's that. A lot of people have asked how I fared during the hurricane, so I thought I should address that. I kind of did that in the other video, but I just wanted to tell you guys we are very blessed in that technology has come a long way, and we have a whole bunch of different tools at our disposal to be able to evaluate different systems that come our way. And let's see, I want to say it was Thursday. That's right, Thursday before the hurricane, I had made the decision that it was time for us to go. And at that time, there were a lot of people that were arguing that I should stay because it looked like the hurricane was going to be just a tropical storm and it was going to go across the north end, the north side of Puerto Rico. And I was concerned that, unfortunately, if I knew it was going to strengthen anyway, and if you read all the models, everyone knew that it was going to get bigger and badder as it went. But if it drifted south a little bit, the problem with me having a full barge is that I need to keep, I can only make about 4 or 5 knots with that. The rougher it gets, the slower we go. And so you don't really want to be stuck. If you wait to the last minute, you can't get away from this thing. And the wind field might be 200, 300, 400 miles across. So I really rallied to try to get out on Thursday. And the good news was that right after that, because of the help of another mariner out there, you know who you are, thank you so much, sent me something that I needed to persuade the powers that be that it was a good time to go right now. We left and everyone, it was beautiful when we left. It was great. And we went for a spot a couple 100 miles south of Puerto Rico. And as the storm came, it did in fact take a southerly dip down around the island, and it also got much bigger. The wind field got bigger, and we had to keep going south, and we waited for it to get by, and it sounds like it was all fun and roses, but we still got beat up pretty bad, but nothing dangerous, just uncomfortable. So you get in the boats, there's a lot of motion in the boat when that happens. But anyway, we came back, and I think the thing made landfall around Monday or Tuesday, and Sunday or Monday. And on Tuesday, we were following right behind it and coming in behind it, and went into San Juan and discharged there. And on Wednesday, I went home. But anyway, I'm back again only because they the mate on the other crew needed to take some time off. And so I came into work a week. So my mate and I are taking up the slack from the other guy. My mate took the first week, I'm taking the second week, and so that's all good. So that's where we're at. So, and speaking of my mate, Luke, you guys have heard me talk about him before. He's doing an amazing job, and he is at the point right now where he really doesn't need much input from me anymore at all. So he was able, even though it was the time was supposed to be on my watch, he wanted to do the job of us getting underway from Mayaguez without an assist tug and getting away from the dock. And it's funny, you would think that would be a relatively easy job. It's a flat thing, but the problem is there isn't a lot of water under there, and hydrodynamically that makes it's very difficult. When you have a lot of water, you can do all kinds of things. When it gets very shoal, when there's a very small difference between where your propellers are and where the bottom is, it's not like you're hitting the bottom or anything, just water doesn't flow the way it should. And I've made some analogies of being in a bathtub before and that sort of stuff, but that's not really important. What's important was that I was able to use my drone to get up on top, shoot down, and you can really see the process of Luke pulling this thing off, and he does a great job. And if you stick to the end, who knows what you might see if you watch all the way through to the end. You might even see me crashing the drone, I don't know, into the winch or something like that, or not, who knows. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and know that Puerto Rico is still having problems. If you're somebody that sends out prayers or good vibes or whatever you call it, or even reaches in your pocket and donates, the Puerto Rican people could really use some help right now. They're great people. The good news about them is that they're resilient, and they count on each other more than they count on the government, and they are coming, they're getting things back right now. There's a whole issue of diesel fuel, which I think has very little to do with the storm. There's some people will argue that. They say there's no diesel on the island. There is diesel on the island, and I know because that's what I move, but that's a whole nother story. Incidentally, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Sal over at What's Going On in Shipping. I'm going to put a link in the description to his channel. He has an amazing channel. Sometimes I don't always watch it because it has to do with big shipping, what we call blue water shipping, as opposed to tugboats. But he has an amazing channel, and he articulates what he's saying so much better than I do. And he talks about the problems with Puerto Rico. I don't mean the problems with Puerto Rico, the problems Puerto Rico is having, or the perceived problems. I think that there's a lot of people that are blaming things like the Jones Act. Those that aren't familiar with the Jones Act, it's a 1920s Merchant Maritime Act where I guess Section 27 is the one that people really think about when they think about the Jones Act, and it has to do with interstate commerce and shipping. Anyway, he goes into great depth. I say great depth. He's able to talk about this stuff really well, and so even a dummy like your old buddy Tim can understand. It's a great channel. He and I talk all the time, and hopefully we'll do a couple shows together, so stick around for that. If you're interested in his channel, I'll put a link in the description below, and enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome. I'm Tim, and this is TimBatSea. And hey, guess what? We're down in the Caribbean. That's right, no longer in New York. Well, just a little change of contract here and a little change of scenery. So if you want to see something different, maybe a side of the Caribbean you've never seen before, come on over every Tuesday and see what we do down here. It's a different type of the towing industry. It's actually towing on the wire. A lot of deep water towing, crazy ports, all kinds of fun stuff. So come along and strap in, and hope you enjoy the ride. So here we are in the Port of Mayaguez. We've discharged our load, and now it's time to get underway. And as you can see, the dock is not really fendered up too well, so we can't really push against the dock to get one end out. We kind of have to walk away from it a little bit, and that's really tough to do, as I was saying before, because of the lack of water that's there. So right now I'm just flying the drone, trying to figure out what I'm doing. As you can see, Luke is much better at running the boat than I am at running the drone. So if there's a student and teacher in this scenario, it would be that I would be the student here. Unfortunately, you guys have to suffer with my poor drone skills, but hopefully they're getting better. Anyway, one thing that you are seeing is something that the operator, in this case Luke, can't see, is the actual distances from the dock to the corner of the barge. Now, I've talked about this before. If you look at the barge, you can see that notch up there. That's actually the stern of the barge, of the actual barge, and the bow is back by our stern. But when we're made up like this, we call this heads and tails, alongside heads and tails. When we're made up like that, the barge can go in any direction. So we assume that the barge's real stern is going to be what we call the working bow. And on my crew, I don't even like to say working bow. It's whatever is in relationship to the tug. The tug is the king, and the tug's the one with the power. So if the tug is pointed in one direction, that's the direction of the barge. And so in this case, the actual stern is going to be the working bow, and the actual bow of the barge is going to be the working stern. Does that make sense? I hope you guys will get that. It can get kind of, some people say, why do you say port and starboard versus left and right? It's all for the same reasons. Sometimes you can't, left and right wouldn't work very well in this scenario, but we all know which side the port and the starboard is. The only thing that changes is that since a tugboat is the principal means of propulsion, we have command of the vessel, of the barge, and so because of that, everything defaults to the tugboat. And this isn't maritime law or anything like that. That's just how we do it, and that's how it's been done in wherever I've worked, and for all the years I've worked, that's how it's been. They might do it differently in different areas. There, you'll see a lot of different barges, like barges in the inland rivers and stuff like that, where it's very hard to tell if there is any bow versus stern. On an ocean-going barge, you usually need to have some sort of bow and a notch in the stern, a rake back there, and that sort of thing. But inland barges, sometimes it might be very difficult to tell if there is, in fact, a bow or a stern, but that's something that you'll have to figure out. That's something that maybe any of you guys that work on the rivers can tell me. I'm sure you can tell me if it's different, but I have a very good feeling that it's the same way as we are. That whichever way the tug is how the barge is. So now what Luke's done here is, because the tug, if he were just to back up, because he's on that side of the barge is going to want to rotate from the way we're seeing it here. It's going to want to rotate clockwise into the dock, and that's because he's pulling on the outside of it. So he has to be very careful, and what he does is he uses one engine and the rudder to twist the bow in, and the other engine to back up to try to get an angle, and then slowly back up. And he has to do it slowly because, like I say, if he does it with a lot of power, it'll start bringing the bow, the stern of the barge, or the working stern of the barge into the dock. It'll rotate it clockwise, and he doesn't want to do that right now. So what he's trying to do is get enough room out there to back up a little bit and then spin the thing around so he can drive it out and get it on the wire. And this is always a tough call because he can't see that much, because remember, the barge is light. Now, he's in the upper house, so he can see a lot more. He couldn't see anything if he were in the lower house, but being in the upper house, he can see over some of the barge. But your perspective is really, really changed when you get way up there in the upper house and you start looking over a barge that's 400 feet long. Things get really messed up, and so you really rely on your deck crew, and they're going to be giving you distances, whether you're going right or left, or how far off you are. So Luke has to figure out, and it looks right now from his wheel wash that he's made the decision that he's far enough off that he can spin this thing around clockwise. And I remember at the time of filming this, I thought to myself, oh my God, he's going to have a problem. He does not have enough room here. I didn't think he was going to make this, but he was going nice and slow and he had control of it. So I said, well, let's see how he does. If you look at the trajectory, it almost looks, you can see his quick water coming off of the stern there. It kind of, the rudders only move so much. And so I'm just like, oh my God, I hope that the working stern or the actual bow of the barge doesn't make contact with the dock. When you look at the water, he's in pretty deep water right now. Those little brown puffs, well, it looks like puffs of smoke almost. That's sand coming up, and that is very, very, very little. So we're probably in a good 40 or 50 feet of water right now. When it gets very, I think the tug draws 14 feet or something like that. When you get down to like 20 feet of water, you can't put an engine in gear or God forbid, put one in reverse without tons of sand blowing up all over everywhere. So he's kind of committed now. He's making it. And if you look, a good indication of whether this is going to work or not is looking at that quick water. And if you draw a line with that quick water, as much as I think he's going to crash into the dock, that quick water is suggesting that he's not. So I'm still not freaking out. I'm on the back deck, and like I say, I have a lot of faith in Luke. And, you know, I don't think he watches any of these videos, so I could probably say this. They're in training people, and I'm not training him how to do it, how to run a tugboat. I'm training him how to do this type of work, and it really has more to do with repetition, being in the seat in a bunch of different conditions. But you seem to have two types of people. You have smart people, and they're very hard to train, because smart people usually have an idea and sometimes founded in the right things because they're smart, sometimes founded in the wrong things because they don't have the experience yet. But smart people aren't always the easiest to train. Then you'll have people that aren't as smart that will do everything you tell them to do, and that's wonderful. So that's easy to train them. The problem is they're only copying what you're telling them. They're not making the decision in their head. And Luke has a very good balance between the two, where he's very smart, he knows what to do, and he listens exactly to what I tell him to do. And I'm just so pleased with him. It sounds silly. Maybe I just had a birthday a couple weeks ago, and maybe I'm getting to the age where I'm starting to realize that the good things in my career will only be the legacy that I leave, as far as people that I've worked with that might tell sea stories that I'm in. So, anyway, as you can see, he's made it around. The working stern of the barge is never going to be an issue with the dock now. He's coming around. It's looking really good. We can all take a big breath. Everything's looking good. Now, when he comes ahead, if he had his rudder straight and he just drove ahead, because there's no weight on the barge and because he's on the side of the barge is going to want to start to move to the left. So what he's going to do is come ahead with some right wheel. That's what we call the rudder move to the right, so that it's like we're making a right-hand turn. Now, as the barge starts to develop speed, water goes down the length of the barge and it acts as almost like a keel. And so as you go faster, you can use less and less rudder. And it's not just that. It's a balance between how much of the engine is pushing versus how much the the barge is resisting. So in other words, when you get everything up to speed, the engine, if let's just say he puts his throttles at 3/4 and he's turning 1250 RPM. At a standstill, that barge does not want to hear this, and it will turn right to the left. But once he gets underway, he'll be able to go straight with just a few degrees of right rudder at 1200 RPM because of the pinch and because the water is running down there. If you remember, pinches, you can't see it from this angle, but there's a couple feet, maybe 3 feet of pinch back there. If you look between the stern of the tugboat and the barge, it looks like it's pressed right in close there, but you'll see that there is a little gap, and that little gap means that the bow, the working bow, which is the actual stern of the barge, is cranked over the center line of the tug, so it's grabbing a little bit, or it doesn't have to be over the center line, but it can be towards that way, so that the whole port side of the barge right now is feeling water pushing against it. And so that you can, if you do it there, you can see that there's that separation where the stern is not right up against there, right up against the barge. And if you have a really good pinch, then you're all set. And the less rudder you use, the more efficient it becomes and the faster it is. Now, we come to the part of the video where I am trying. I had a wonderful thing. We shot a good video here. It's all kinds of fun. Luke did a great job. Now we're underway and we're making way, as you can see. And I've got to get this drone back before the battery dies. And I'm looking directly into the sun, so I can't really see the drone. And when I look at my monitor, I can't see the monitor because my eyes were just looking into the sun. And the tug and barge are probably doing 6 knots, 7 knots away from me, which doesn't seem that much. I also have to say that I'm not a drone pilot. I'm learning how to do this. So now, as soon as you go up there and you stop to go land, what you're landing on takes off, because it's when you stop to land, the tug and barge continue to move without you. So here I come in, and then when I drop down below the deck of the barge, I get buffeted by all the wind that is generated from the tug moving ahead. Now I'm trying to land this thing. My heart rate right now is probably about 140. When Luke was taking off, my heart rate was probably about 86. So I'm trying to get this thing, and I'm worried about running it into that mast, that antenna. I have this idea, and a friend of mine who's a commercial fisherman I asked him if he had any leftover gill net from back in the day, and he said he did. I want to set up a little gill net that I can fly the drone into the gill net and do an intentional crash. And he has it. I just haven't got it from him yet. And on SV Paquita, I can't, there's no place to really land, and I got 14 shrouds, and so I just bought myself a fish grabbing net. I don't know if that's the proper name for them or not, but you know, the thing that looks like a butterfly net that you catch a big fish in. And my idea is that I'll fly it into that, but I don't have any of that here, and I'm freaking out because the boat is going faster and faster and faster. We're probably up to 7 knots now, maybe even more, and I'm trying to fly it in, and my battery is beeping right now. My battery's saying I'm running out. You can see me looking into the sun there, trying to land this thing, and there's no and so I'm like, well, if I lose this, if it runs out of battery, it's going to land in the water. And if it doesn't run out of battery, I need to land this thing. So even if I crash it into the deck, that's better than anything else. And for those of you that are wondering why I don't use the go home function, the go home function is a geographical spot. It doesn't move with you. So in other words, if I said to have it go home, it would go back to when we were tied up alongside the dock, and they would land there in the water. It doesn't know where you are. So anyway, here I come. Oh, I hit the Texas bar, and boom, into the winch, and I'm down and out for the count. Anyway, that's it. Hope you guys liked it. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the one.
Thank you.